Here are the best teams to rebuild in College Football 26 Dynasty mode. The first one is pretty obvious. It's going to be Delaware University, and this one is because this is their first year in the FBS. They've never been in an NCAA football game before, so it's your chance to come in here and literally build a program from scratch. They have no history, they have no coaches, no players, no really anything good. They've gone to the FBS, now it's your chance to get them up and, a little bit higher. Obviously, it's going to probably start out rough. You could probably go around 0-12 the first year, maybe 2-10 if you're lucky. But after that, it's going to be a slow burn to the top. And once you finally get there, it's going to feel very rewarding. So I would definitely suggest choosing Delaware as one of your first rebuilds for the game, maybe a little later once you get the hang of it. Next up is South Carolina, and this is one that I'm actually probably going to do by myself, and it's for a couple of sneaky reasons. First off, Lenora Sellers. I mean, this guy is crazy good. He's coming back off a great season. You have all the tools around there, including Nick Harbor. So the combination of Nick Harbor and Lenora Sellers is part of the reason I want to do it so bad. Nick Harbor is 6'5" and will probably have 99 speed again, and we just found out that receivers are more likely to moss in 26 compared to 25. So if you have a super athletic, super tall receiver out there and a quarterback who can get it to him, that's going to be super fun to play with. And that's exactly what South Carolina has, which is why I'm so excited to do a rebuild with them. I think it's just going to be a ton of fun. Plus, you can break the Clemson-dominated South Carolina. Basically, what I mean with this is Clemson has been the face of college football in South Carolina for, as long as we can remember. You can finally take South Carolina to the top and beat that, stigma. Next one is Kent State, and it's pretty obvious for most of you guys. They're coming off of 23 straight losses. That is absolutely crazy. They're in the MAC, which is a relatively easy conference to win in a game like college football. So I definitely think you could try to bring them up. Plus, for those of you who don't know, EA is giving out money based on how much people play with them inside of the game, so you can directly support the NIL fund for Kent State by using them in game. A lot of people have already talked about this, so those of you who heard of it before, you know exactly what I'm talking about. If we all come together and use Kent State, we can boost their NIL money, so that's an extra positive for why you should use Kent State. Next up is Marshall, and I haven't heard a ton of people talking about them. They won the Sun Belt last year, which gives you a great opportunity to start out, with a good team, with a good roster. And my idea is that the first season you just try to run it back. Maybe, go undefeated, get into the playoff if you can. Obviously, you're not expected to do anything in the playoffs, but if you can win the Sun Belt easily, I think that's when you put your sights on the Power 4. If you can consistently get good recruits from the West Virginia area, so that's going to be a little bit tough, but if you can get your hands on some good recruits, I definitely think you could take them to the Power 4 and, expand on that. But I definitely think the opportunity from them winning the Sun Belt last year to trying to win it again and keeping that momentum going, I think could be super fun, especially for a first or second rebuild where you're still trying to get the ropes, but at least you get to play against bad opponents week in and week out. Next up is Nebraska, and I always like to include at least one Big Ten team in these lists because of the opportunity that you have to play against such good opponents. Not only is it making you better, but if you can get one of those upsets, you're just going to fly through the rankings. So Nebraska for, the current day, but also for the historic. A lot of people talk about how good Nebraska used to be, and that can be kind of a throwback to bring Nebraska back to glory as kind of your storyline for this rebuild. I mean, you could even go as far as to run the option like they did back in the day and kind of offset how football is played nowadays with the constant passing and stuff like that. Another thing is that you have Dylan Raiola. So that's going to be a great player, especially in college football, the video game, because we've talked about it before. EA Sports likes to boost the attributes of people who are kind of famous in real life compared to the other players. And Raiola's out there, people are going to want to use him, so you'll get some of those extra stats probably added to him. So along with that, he was a true freshman last year. He's a sophomore this year, so you at least have this year and next year with him. He has all this experience. He's only going to get better. I would highly suggest Nebraska for a rebuild. I think it'd be super fun. It might take a little bit, especially with the recruiting in Nebraska. It's not great to say the least, but that's what it's for. It's for the challenge. So once again, I just highly recommend doing Nebraska. Next up is Vanderbilt, and this is a team that often finds itself on this list just because it's in the SEC. It's usually one of the worst teams. Now, give them credit. They're not as bad as they used to be. They used to go 1-11, 2-10 every year. I think Mississippi State's taken that role, but Vanderbilt is still on the come up. They had some upsets wins last year. They weren't perfect. I mean, they dropped some games they probably shouldn't have. So it's your chance to try to take them to the top. Obviously, you're competing in one of the top 2 most competitive leagues in the whole entire, college football in the SEC, but you have chances to play against really good opponents, which I think is good for a rebuild like this with Vanderbilt, where you have a good recruiting base. You're in Tennessee, you can get some of those Texas, Georgia, Florida, maybe even guys like that. So there's definitely some opportunities with Vanderbilt. They're a really good academic school, so you could kind of break the stigma with the SEC for that. But, just try and compete with the big dogs in the SEC. I think that'd be a very fun rebuild, and it's part of the reason why I did a Vanderbilt rebuild last year. They also have a returning quarterback, which is a huge deal in college football. A guy who's already familiar with the system. Obviously, it's video games, so that doesn't matter as much. But for the immersion, he's coming back. He has a chip on his shoulder. He's trying to win some stuff. So I think Pavia is going to be a great guy for you if you try to, rebuild Vanderbilt this year. Next is USC, and this is one like South Carolina where I really want to rebuild them. You can do so much with USC. They fell on kind of, hard times recently because of Lincoln Riley, stuff like that. They used to be a lot better. They went, I think, 7-5 last year, which obviously isn't good enough for a program of their stature. So, I mean, everything is there for you. You have California recruiting. You're in the Big Ten. You can get good players. You just have to start winning games, have to make the right decisions, which can be a challenge, but I think it wouldn't be that hard. I just think USC would be a great rebuild, a very fun rebuild, not one that's going to take, hours off your life and stuff and kind of get boring after a while. I think USC would be an exciting rebuild. Next up is Texas State, and they're an upcoming program. They're kind of similar to Marshall, but they're not quite as good. They're both in the Sun Belt, but Texas State did, I think, go maybe 7-5 last year, 8-4, somewhere in that range. So not as good. They didn't even make it to the Sun Belt Championship. But you're in Texas. The recruiting is good. Obviously, you're competing with teams like, Texas and Oklahoma, Texas A&M, Texas Tech, all those teams. But if you can kind of get the leftovers, which there are still probably some good leftovers, I think you could definitely go somewhere with this. You're in the group of 5, so, you can take it up. You can move conferences if you want, maybe go to the Power 4. There's a lot of opportunity with Texas State. Next is Colorado, and you probably knew that I was going to include them. The main reason being, obviously, their 2 superstars are gone, along with Shiloh Sanders, which not really a superstar, but definitely a well-known player. So who are you really left with? I mean, I bet most of you guys can't name another player on Colorado. Coach Prime is still there for 4 years, regardless of whether his favorite players are there. So that's definitely going to be interesting. I definitely think it'd be a lot of fun. You're in the Big 12, so not super competitive, but still somewhat competitive. So I don't know. I think Colorado would just be interesting for what it is in real life, and it's exciting to see how they do in real life, this upcoming season, and it'd be fun to rebuild them. Next up is Cincinnati, and they were relevant for a couple years. They got to the College World Playoff back when it was only 4 teams. Obviously, they didn't make it very far, but still, for where they were at, it was a big jump, and then they went to the Big 12 and kind of stuttered. They kind of just fell out of the spotlight a little bit. So taking Cincinnati back to the playoff is obviously a lot easier than when it was 4 teams. I think it'd be a lot of fun. You're in Ohio, which is an underrated state for recruiting. You're competing with Ohio State, but not even really. Ohio State gets a lot of guys from California, Texas anyway, so you kind of get those Ohio guys to come down to Cincinnati. You have a decent roster to start out with, which is always good. And you could maybe even join the Big 10 down the road if you're very successful in the Big 12 and want a bigger challenge. So with that being said, though, that's going to wrap it up for today's video. Hopefully you use one of these teams or learned anything from this video, but thank you so much for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe if you haven't, and I will see you in the next one.